Well, it's a carry on from another study that we did looking at effects of culture on environmental safety practices. This was done with a different data set. This was and it was mostly an internal, or you may be referred to as intra-firm phenomena. So something that occurs inside a company, but looking at whether or not cultural biases or cultural preferences influence the pursuit of environmental and safety practices. And this was done with the similar, at least Damien Power and I, we conducted this back in 2015, 2013, somewhere in there. And then we started thinking about the supply chain perspective, and does a societal level construct have supply chain implications or supply chain practices, the pursuit of supply chain practices. And so we thought about it, and we decided to look at leadership. And leadership, recent study, similar to, we used the GLOBE study, and in the first paper, and now we use the GLOBE, the leadership portion of the GLOBE study. And we decided to take a look, and we found effects, and decided to do a write-up. So we found that leadership preferences do matter in the sense of whether or not certain supply chain practices are being pursued. It's a bit of we had to make the conceptual connection between what is a leadership preference and what's a supply chain practice. But leadership preference is what people in a country expect their leaders to do, and this permeates both follower actions as well as leadership actions. And we had to make the conceptual connection first, which we did, that supply chain practices, you're really trying to influence others through supply chain practices, and within your company as well as externally. And so once we were able to make that conceptual connection, we found the IMSS data to look at it, and we tested whether or not a collaborative type approach to leadership would be the indicator of or would be the predictor of the supply chain practices, and they were somewhat. We tested both internal and external, so internal supply chain practices with whether internally the people are coordinating, and then externally whether they're coordinating with suppliers. And we found that the collaborative approach does predict internal pursuit of internal integration, synchronization and coordination of functions. But externally, it was actually different. The leadership styles that relate more to what we consider to individualistic leadership preferences, autonomy, autonomous, and we call self-protective. These are the globe constructs. Leaders that are very self-protective of trying to retain their position, or value autonomy in decision making. That was predictive of the external pursuit of external integration, which is different. And so, how to make sense of that? We tried to make sense of it in a way. It was unexpected, but really, when we started digging into it, we started implying to suggest that managers are pursuing this supply chain integration, external supply chain integration, as a way to retain their position or protection, or to prevent or mitigate risk. It's a very kind of a proactive view of trying to get control over their situation. So that's what it implies. It implies that from an external view, trying to integrate externally, it's really a leadership approach that is synonymous with protection and autonomy, and trying to protect its position and keep its decision making. So. Well, we're looking more into this leadership construct. It's whenever we get perplexing, unexpected findings, that's just means more work to do, which is good. Keeps us unemployed. What we're kind of doing is we're challenging. We kind of tongue-in-cheek refer to this as we're challenging the kumbaya theory of supply chain management. The fact that supply chains, it's all about collaboration and getting along, and it's not really that. It's some of that, but it's not always about this. Everyone being cooperative and collaborating and getting along. Sometimes it's a lot about protecting your position, securing assets and resources in a way that allows you to retain assets, retain your basically your competitive position, and it's very aggressive. It can be very assertive and aggressive, and you talk to some of these, especially some of these smaller suppliers who've had to integrate with large companies, large buyers, and I don't think it's necessarily a nice, cozy thing. It's sometimes done in a way that isn't necessarily kumbaya. So we want to pursue that more. We want to look into what are these leadership behaviors, and we want to look at it in the modern age. In the digital world, what is leadership looking like? How do you manage operations that are a lot's been given over to automation? A lot of decision making is automated. Technology is influencing how we do things, and so what does leadership look like in that realm? We're just to put a plug in for the Global Manufacturing Research Group, the GMRG. We're looking at that very specifically. We're measuring leadership. It's Hayes and Wheelwright long ago said, you can look at all the technology you want. You can look at all the management techniques that you want, but in the end, it's leadership. That their extensive research found that success is about leadership, and supply chain researchers have really ignored leadership altogether. So we're gonna fix that, and we're gonna look at leadership, and we're gonna go straight at it and try to make sense of it.